Eighth graders, what's going on? Let's talk about our problem of the day today. Copy it down, give it a try. We want you to do two things, simplify and evaluate. So you should have two answers when you're done. All right, simplifying. How do we simplify exponents if we're multiplying them? Well, we don't multiply, we actually end up adding the exponents, right? So I end up with 2, my base stays the same. And the only reason I can do this is because the bases are the same, and we know 3 plus 2 is 5. So there's simplified. There's no negatives, we can leave it the way it is. Now we have to evaluate it though. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is not 2 times 5 is 10. That will not give you the right answer. It's nowhere near 10. So we know 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32. So my answer is actually 32, not 10. All right, 2 to the 5th is 32. This is the way you have to do it, all right? There's a couple ways, other ways you can do that. I could say 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, and then times 2. Then I could say 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. So there's a couple ways to do those. That's 6th grade stuff, though, we know that. All right. Okay, good. So, more notes for today. More exponents with negatives. So the negatives get really, really tricky. And we just kind of scratched the surface of that a little bit. We know that negative 2 to the 3rd is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, right? But we know 2 to the negative 3rd is very different. When you have the negative in the exponent, we have to pretend that this is a fraction. Move the whole thing to the bottom, make this positive, and put our 1 on top. All right? So that's simplified. We simplified both of these. Now, if I wanted to evaluate it, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, times negative 2 is negative 8. So this one, your answer is negative 8. This one, your answer isn't negative at all. 2 to the 3rd is 2 times 2 times 2, which isn't 6. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So this is 1/8. Always good to write these out like this. Makes your life easier if you have to evaluate it. So this one, the answer is 1/8. This one, the answer is negative 8. All right? But that's kind of what we reviewed. That's what we already know. I want to talk about some new stuff. And it's going to mix some 7th grade stuff we already know that we learned with Miss Brinker with stuff that we're learning this year. All right? So we're just going to be simplifying today. X to the 2 times x to the negative 5. So we know that we have to add these, right? So I have 2 plus negative 5. So I'm going to end up with x to the something. So a plus and a negative turns into a negative. So this is the same as 2 minus 5. Those are different signs, which means we subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. Stronger one is negative, so it's negative 3. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Or 2 plus negative 5 is still negative 3. Is this my final answer? No, we can't have a negative in there. So I'm going to do that magical thing, put the 1 on the bottom. Move this whole thing to the bottom, make it positive, put the 1 on the top. Here's my answer. A little bit tricky. All right, what if we had a division one? Oh, they're both negative, right? Now we know from up here that I can move this to the bottom. I can also move one to the bottom to the top. So these ones, I can just switch them and make them positive, since they're both negative, right? Then I just say 5 minus 3 is y to the 2. And it's positive, so we're good to go. The other way to do this is I could say negative 3 minus negative 5. 2 minuses turn into a plus. Different signs, you subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 is stronger. So I'm still going to get y to the 2, right? So there's a couple ways to do it. Both ways are valid. I like to get rid of all the negatives before I try to solve it. All right, what if we had a negative in one of these? Two times negative 3. Well, positive times a negative is a negative 6, right? And we just got to get rid of the negative. One over y to the 6th. All right, let's look at one more. To make sure we got this, there's a lot of stuff with this. You have to remember your negative rules from last year or else you're sunk. Okay? So m, so the negative 3 times m to the negative 4. Well, this one, there's a bunch of ways to do it. I could just say negative 3 plus negative 4. Plus and minus turns into a minus. Those are touching. And same signs we add and keep the sign. And this has to get switched to positive, right? So there's one way to do it. Or I could switch these first. Get rid of the negatives before I even start. And say that this is 1 over m to the 3. And this one times 1 over m to the 4. So I'm just moving these to the bottom, right? Making them positive. And then my answer would be 1 times 1 is 1. Add these. 1 over m to the 7. So you get the same answer. Kind of a lot today, right? You just got to remember those negative rules for adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing negatives. Give those a try today and see how you do. It's going to be a little bit of a tricky one.